50% of small businesses fail within 1 year and 90% within 5 years. Now, whether the stats were accurate or not, it was a good motivator for me. I'm like, well, I want to be one of the 50 and I want to be one of the 10.
Welcome back to another episode of Relentless Life on Your Terms. I'm joined with Mark Kentwell. Mark, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks very much, Chris.
Now, beside the fact I was recently on your podcast, Flow Zone, which we'll talk a little bit about, you've got a very interesting journey that spans. You started in business in 2005.
Yeah.
Which is when I launched this business.
Oh, really?
So,
there we go. We are parallel.
21st of March 2005. So you've got a 20-year tenure in business, which is amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a very impressive achievement. What did you start in 2005? Tell us a bit about Mark and a bit about your business journey.
Yeah, well, the company, which is now a group of companies I started in 05, is real estate related, real estate services related. I actually came from an engineering background though. So at school, I did pretty well at school. I was passionate about sort of business and commerce. I did economics and legal. But I could see that I was unlikely to stay through, 6+ years of uni. So I got ducks in my year 10, and then I went for apprenticeships at the end of year 10.
So for those who don't know, ducks are distinctions, not the birds. Because
yes. It was a term my parents taught me, and I don't hear it much anymore. But yeah, they awarded us on stage. I was equal first with this other lady. Catherine Skill.
I've never got one of those ducks unless I caught one at a park or something.
At the show, maybe.
Yeah. But when someone goes, I got all these ducks, I said, really?
Anyway, I did well academically, but I couldn't see myself sitting through 6 years of uni. And I lived in the Hunter Valley at the time in New South Wales, and there was a very big sort of mining and engineering sector there. So the other part of my brain was very much engineering, 3-unit maths,
left brain,
science.
Yep.
So I had kind of both. I was more interested in business. I'd already had a little business flipping motorbikes at the time, and I was into creativity and music, but I thought I need to get out and start working and sort of build some wealth and just figure out who I am in the world. So I got the job at the end of year 10, but I failed the eyesight test, not knowing at the time I needed glasses.
Yep.
So I went another year of school, did year 11, did pretty well, but I went for the apprenticeships again towards the end of year 11, and I got all 5 I went for. I took the one in the mines because it gave, at the time it was owned by the state government. So what they did, they'd bring in people as apprentices. They let them do any ticket that they could, like a certification related to the whole mining and engineering sector. And then they'd kick you out at the end of your apprenticeship and you'd come back and contract with a specialty. And I knew that before I started. The money was more than double every other role. So I took it and I ended up with 2 trades, electrical and mechanical. And then I went on to do electrical engineering, mechanical engineering. And I suppose even though that I had done that and I started building wealth earlier and bought my first property at 19, I was just never passionate about staying in that industry. I was happy to and willing to. It was sort of a couple of years after finishing my apprenticeship, they actually kept us on because the mine got privatized while I was there. So I ended up with this new range of options, a long-term career with really good benefits and really good income. I'm talking like 130, 150 grand when I was like 20, 21. I got my first property at 19 when I was just coming out of my apprenticeship.
How'd you save the deposit? How'd you get into the market?
Well, that's a good question because at the time I was still scrapping it together like anyone else. Like I was still into cars and partying and all that sort of stuff. But I worked overtime when I could, which was a fair bit. I had dirt bikes, drum kits, all that sort of stuff. And I remember at the time it was like 2000 and it had been a recession in Australia in the 90s, as you'd be well aware, sort of interest rates in the teens, nothing had happened in the property market. And then they brought out a lot of stimulation packages like first home buyer grants and things of this nature.
How old, if you don't mind me asking, Mark?
Sorry, I'm 43 now.
I'm old, I'm 45. But I also bought my first property at 19. I'm also in real estate. There's so many parallels to our stories. And we're going to talk a bit more about your business journeys, 8-figure business, all that. The more I speak to you, and obviously in Flow Zone, the more I see there's so many parallels to your story and mine.
Yeah, I struggle not to tell it in bullet points because like every time it comes up, I feel the whole journey again. You know, so I loved my people I was around in the mines. I loved the problems I got to solve. So look, I'll fast forward a little bit. I ended up what's called a fault finder in high voltage electrical circuits and mechanical and hydraulic and pneumatic circuits, which is like air, oil, and then electrical and mechanical issues. So I kind of developed a role that I was valuable to the mine in that if I could prevent something happening that was going to cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars an hour if it got shut down, then they gave me more and more sort of seniority. But there was no real way to get ahead further other than if someone retired or died or moved to another mine. And I couldn't feel the progress of the career. And I felt there needed to be something more fulfilling. So I dabbled in music as a profession as well as, you know, a hobby. And I started feeling it in music. I felt like I had a really
What sort of music?
It was Aussie hip hop. And I still do it for a bit of fun every now and then.
I heard you can rap as well, so hopefully later you give us a bit of a rap, yes?
I could do a topic jam for you pretty easily, actually.
So at the end, you'll give us a bit of a rap?
Yeah, you give me a couple of topics and I'll see what I can spit out.
I can't wait. So look, as I said, I wanted to ask you that, and obviously, funny when you walked in, my colleague said you have amazing shoes, and I hear you have a ton of pairs as well.
Yeah, I think that is a bit of a hark back to growing up. Like, so the 90s was a hard time financially. I didn't feel it hard, but like, you know, it would have been hard to say to my parents, hey, I want a pair of Jordans, you know, like, and I became obsessed with basketball and sport. There was no way I was affording a pair of Jordans, like first go. Started earning pocket money early. And I just remember getting my first pair of pumps or Jordans. And it was just such a big deal, like years of saving. And then later in life, like I suppose I could afford watches or cars or whatever. And I thought I actually want something that kind of gives me a buzz. It's related to basketball, which I love, hip hop, which I love, reminds me of my era. And I have them on display in each of my homes.
And just for our records, by the way, beautiful Panerai. I noticed that when you walked in, great watch. When we're talking numbers of shoes, I heard and I thought I have to ask him, what are we talking?
Of this kind of sneaker, like basketball or retro sneakers, about 150 pairs.
I heard that. I go, oh my God, I've got like 6 or 8 and I think I've got too many. I only wear 2. I always pick the same ones to go to the gym, and I thought, wow, you can almost wear one every day for 6 months.
Yeah, the idea of it is I can. They're not actually that expensive to have as a hobby. Like, I got into watches there for a while. I had a few mentors that said, look, when you do something really significant, as long as you earned it, you know, tie the watch to the significance. 100%. And that's where this Panerai and a couple of the ones prior came from. But I realized I can only wear one watch at a time. And I can't really look at them other than in a rocker over in the corner. Whereas with the shoes, on the US11, a lot of my friends are. I actually loan them out to my friends on like a library card system. They can wear them for 3 months.
You can make a fortune with that. Look, for me, the watches are important. I remember 3 years ago, I bought a beautiful Breguet for Monards when I hit $1 billion under management. And that was my piece. This one here I bought for my 40th. Usually I buy them at a significant milestone. This one, the 40th, I thought I love Patek, so I got it for that. But the Breguet was specific for that. And I love it. It represents time, but it represents an achievement as well. I like watches, and I've got quite a few. And most of them I bought, not all of them, represented something. A milestone, an achievement, whatever it is. But runners, when I heard, I go, what do you mean 100 and something? I go, 150 pairs. I go, my whole house would be full of runners. You must have the biggest wardrobe to put them all in.
Well, they're in like these displays, right? So it's kind of like street art installation. You know, it all sort of fits under this banner of like a creative living lifestyle. So if I could see street art on my walls, which I have local artists in all of my houses, I always get artists to paint the inside of the house, not just the outside. Custom art or, you know, art that we've picked up around the world. The shoes are a big part of it. Music and sort of the right pops of color.
And that represents to you when you were young. I remember I used to skateboard, and remember the Converse All-Stars?
Yeah,
they were
definitely.
$30 at the time, but I bought the imitation pairs that were 10 because back then it is what it is. There was 4 of us, $10. And I was so happy because they looked like the Converse All-Stars, but they weren't the real ones. And I used to skateboard and I was scared to ollie because I'll rip them.
Yeah.
But all of those things, they symbolize. In the past, you couldn't get those Air Jordans, and now you got 150 pairs of runners. So It's pretty cool. So going back, I know we're going in and out of topics because you're such an interesting person. With all these businesses that you're running over the last 20 years, and I know that you've recently exited as well and you've scaled, tell me a bit about starting a business, an 8-figure business, scaling it. How did you scale? When did you exit? Why did you exit? Tell me a bit about that journey.
Yeah, sure. and I'll aim to do it more in bullet points.
No, what you're doing is fine.
So we originally went with a dealer group, like you would if you're a financial planner or whatever. It was like a franchise network. And the reason of choosing that at the time, I was in my early 20s. I hadn't actually sold a house before. My parents had bought and sold and renovated. And so I got to see that journey, but they were more doing it for survival and to help keeping us going through school.
Keeping the lights on.
Keep the lights on. Yeah. Bare hands renovations. And the whole family would get involved. And I learned a lot during that journey. When I got into real estate, I suppose what I did straight up is I used the skills that I learned from music and getting people to events and entertaining and making sure that it was a win for all stakeholders, like the venue, the manager, the band, the crowd.
So when you say, now I have to ask, the skills you got towards music, I understand the skills from sports related to business. The skills you mean people skills? What are you referring to when you say the people?
Definitely the product, like the side of putting on an event, for example. We used to support the Hilltop Hoods and groups like that, right? Especially when they were coming up, when like they'd be the main act. Trying to get on the bill with them, like most acts would be at the bottom. What I learned though was that the publican who was putting that show on was right on the knife's edge of even making anything off that show, because they've got to pay the band, they've got to pay the manager, they've got to pay for all the posters and the promotion.
It's expensive.
It's scary,
it's
right?
a lot of work.
Yeah. So I started seeing that people were not turning up to these shows until like immediately before the main act, maybe the one before them that was touring with them. And I thought that was a problem. Like, we're trying to support this kind of music, but the publican's making no money. No one's buying their dinner there, eating, drinking there. And we were bringing our crowd, which is a pretty good crowd, and it was building. So I started databasing really early. I'm talking before iPhones. I would actually get around with a clip chart, and I'd be drinking and having fun and everything back then. But I was getting mobile numbers and email addresses.
You're building networks.
I was building networks because I wanted to have like-minded people benefiting from the same stuff.
Exactly what Flow Zone is, which is trying. Now, for those who don't follow you, I recommend they do. You post a lot of great content. You talk a lot about entrepreneurship as well. So since being on your podcast, I'm seeing a lot of it come up and I'm really liking it. And you said it before we went on air as well, that you're looking for a like-minded community.
Yes, I am looking for a like-minded community. And I suppose we're in the age of AI and personal brands, right? And the personal brand for me is like, I'd always been in behind a business brand or a franchise group. Some of the ventures that I've done, I've put someone else out in front of it, maybe because it would have been a conflict or maybe just because it wasn't appropriate. I was living in Newcastle, New South Wales. It's a little bit more subdued than the capital cities as far as success goes. So, I suppose it's tying over. The music was the whole show and making it work for everyone. And the engineering side of me was looking for the problems that existed in the current way it was done and looking for a better way of doing it.
Better, faster, more efficient. So you actually had that. It is unique in the sense you're very left-brained, the analytical, the engineering part of your brain, but also very creative when you look at everything you mentioned about art, about music, or your sneakers. So you're a hybrid of both, which everyone's got both traits, but I'm strong left brain.
Yeah.
Creative, I'd say kind of, but not really. I'm not the best in that regard, but I'm very left brain. I want to problem solve, I want to see how it works, I want to rip it apart, and I want to improve and optimize it.
That's interesting you say that. You're describing probably your current status as you see it or as you reflect on it. But when someone says, I'm more of this or I'm more of that, I think it's actually got a lot to do with how often you flex those muscles. So like, if you think about it like fitness, like none of us are elite runners when we start. We learn how to run, but we don't know how to run 42 Ks or run 100 meters really quickly. But if we were to do that regularly, we could actually develop that muscle or that part of our brain, to use a comparison. So like it might be surprising how creative you actually are, Chris. You've created an amazing business here. You've made something in a very tough industry work by putting things together that don't usually go together. Financial planning, buyer's agency, wealth creation, seller's agency. Yeah. So like it's surprising, some people might be predisposed to more analytics and engineering and stuff like that. But it's quite surprising how those people can actually be very creative if they open themselves up to it and try not to pigeonhole themselves.
But you know what you shared it. Malcolm Gladwell wrote the book Outliers, 10,000 hours. If you practice at any skill or craft, you can become an expert in your field. Now, if you're working a job that's 5 years, 3 weeks and like 2-3 days to get those 10,000 hours. So if you do that more regularly, do 80 hours, you can do it in half the time. It's about the correct practice and it takes 10,000 hours. And if you enjoy it, like your music or like business to me or you'll do them quicker and you'll ask better questions because you'll be more curious. So I do believe your confidence, your competence will improve the more times you do something, but I also believe there's some things you're more naturally drawn to.
Yeah, and I just had to take that little turn there that we were talking about because of the right brain, left brain thing. That to answer your question, look, I started in residential and commercial. I really wanted to do projects, developments.
Yep.
I just felt that there was a big gap. Like I could see there was a big gap. We analyzed it for quite a while before getting into it with my father and I. We did it over many family dinner conversations. He'd entered commercial only about 12 months prior, coming from a completely different industry. I was coming from engineering, hadn't actually sold a house or a property, but we'd done one commercial development, industrial development, and I'd owned 2 properties and some shares and some other assets. So I sold a bunch.
Dabbled.
I dabbled. I'd had direct experience. And at that age, like I thought, if I'm going to springboard, I'm going to do it now. I've built up some capital. I've built up some savings. And I sort of, it was maybe $350,000 in hard dollar cash that I put in. Mum and Dad remortgaged their house. And we worked really hard. But in the first 18 months, we didn't take anything out of the business. We just kept putting it in. We had competitors like really trying to shut us down. And we were no one on the scheme of things. But it was about 2-3 years after that, we got through that first phase. You know, a lot of people said to me, oh, look, 50% of small businesses fail within 1 year and 90% within 5 years. Now, whether the stats are accurate or not, it was a good motivator for me. I'm like, well, I want to be one of the 50 and I want to be one of the 10.
It is like 96.3% of stats are made up on the spot, yeah? But whatever it is, the numbers are ridiculously high and most people quit. And I always use the analogy that it's like a bamboo stick. You water it, and it takes years for it to actually come. But all the work is being created in that foundational piece. And then you see something springboard up. It's like when you drive past the building, you see it come up quick. But they've spent so many months building a basement, building a foundation so it can go up. Business is very similar in my experience. So when people say, people quit just before they're about to make it or just before something's about to happen because they use that, hey, nothing's happening. They're watering this bamboo, but all the work's being done. It's being created. And to put 350 into a business and to remortgage a house, when I started this business, I was 348 grand worth of debt. People don't understand. They see Mark, this successful person. He's got all these businesses, multiple 8-figure businesses, 150 plus sneakers, all these watches. But what they don't see is the investment, all the work you put in when no one's watching, all that, shit, am I going to be able to pay my bills? How bad is this actually going to be? The sleepless nights. Like I remember during my journey, I go to bed sometimes years ago, sometimes even now. I'm so exhausted. When I hit that bed, my eyes were, and I'm up all night wired, literally wired. And I know I'm so exhausted. I'm going to shower, I get to bed and I will be up until 3, 4, 5 a.m. before I got to go to work again. My mind is just wired. And running a business, anyone would understand that feeling. But they look at you and they go, that's cool. Like, I want what Mark's got. Are you willing to do the work though? Yeah.
And I think there's a big topic at the moment about, whether people should get into business, and
it's a great question.
A lot of people talking about it, don't start a business, just buy the ASX 200 or just buy property because, it's reliable and you can build wealth that way and keep doing your job.
Nothing wrong with that.
What's your thoughts on that?
Nothing's wrong with that, Mark. And I think you're an entrepreneur or a solopreneur or an intrapreneur. Now, an intrapreneur you might just be a good 2IC. You might be happy with that. Now, I've got people that I know very well that earn great money and they live an amazing life. Great life. 400-500 grand. Now, and they're home a lot. For me, that's a death sentence. I know that I want to work a lot. For me, I'm born to do this. Some people are not. And my thought to that, the answer to the question is not wrong or right. You might be a great 2IC. You might want to work in a business and go home and do. That's right for you. So you mentioned it before. Don't pigeonhole yourself. You might be born to be an entrepreneur. Not everyone's cut out to do it. Not everyone understands the risk. Not everyone's willing. That's fine. Whatever you're comfortable with, when people say, oh, why do you work so much? You're crazy. That's your opinion. You should be asking, hey, are you happy? Do you feel purposeful? Do you feel useful? If the answer is yes, you've picked the right decision for yourself. And that decision might change over time. You might want to work for someone, then you're going to work for yourself, then you want to retire. So the answer to your question, it's a long-winded one, is there's no wrong or right. It depends on the person. Be honest with yourself and be open-minded and don't care what anyone thinks. I've had people say to me when I was coming to the office at 2:33 a.m. for ages till 7 and working weekend, you're crazy. But I chose to do that. And I've said before, I'm a retired businessman that chooses to do 600 hours a week. I love it.
Yeah.
Now, is it right or wrong? I don't know. It's up to you. For me, I'm happy. This is what I want. Has it cost me other things in my life? A divorce and things? Sure, it has. Of course it has. Would I do it again if I had to? In a fucking heartbeat. It's bad to say, but it's me. It's
Well, you
not
might
us.
do it differently, but you're not
Maybe,
going to be
but it
confronted
is.
with exactly the same situation. So, like, there's no point regretting the past, is there?
But it's a lesson. You either win or you learn.
Mm.
So I'm better now than I was before because of that experience.
Yeah.
Am I going to dwell on it or move forward? So going back, because me and you can talk for hours. When did you know it was time to scale your business? And when did you, now you exited a very successful exit as well. Tell me about those two things.
Yeah. So I made a decision about 2011. So that was my 6th year as real estate professional. I was a selling principal then. It was around the same time I acquired the other half of my parents who co-founded with me, and they went off into other ventures again. And I was sitting in a lounge room. I signed up a property for a couple of $1 million. I'd been handpicked by the owner, no competition. It was textbook. Like, I was going to earn, $70,000, $80,000 off the job.
Good money.
And I was sitting there filling out pieces of paper, with back then paper, and I was so frustrated with how inefficient the real estate whole model was. Like, for such a big prize pool, for 66% of Australia's wealth to be held in real estate, and yet the real estate services industry
is archaic.
was just archaic, like cottage as can be, like as bad as builders turning up late on site, like that was what I was seeing day in, day out, and still am to a large extent, even though there's more tech. So I'm like, I need to get involved in creating a better system, which I'd already been on, like created friendly auctions, which is more consumer friendly version of auctions. But I think I started becoming more passionate about the customer experience and trying to make the model work for all stakeholders, not just for real estate agents or, an owner that might have got a lucky result at an auction because there was 1 million buyers bidding, all that sort of stuff. So I realized at that point in 2011, and then it was a 10-year journey to get off the tools. I had some people in my businesses that weren't really aligned to the vision, the mission, the values.
Which is why you're so passionate about it.
I'm more passionate now than ever.
But it's experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
So 10 years later, you scaled it and exited?
Yeah. So I got to the point with that business where I was no longer selling. I had a management team in place, and I started the process that my wife and I had decided earlier that we wanted to start moving to Melbourne. So we started coming down here, holiday home that we acquired. We had Airbnb. And so it started as like longer stays and then bringing the kids. And then we're like, you know what, why don't we just do the director sort of founder thing and run it from here, have my operating system there. Now, that's pretty much what we started doing. We had a couple of sort of roadblocks and headwinds amongst the way, but it wouldn't be like Alan Dibb said recently on my Flow Zone podcast. You wouldn't really call it a goal if you just walked up and grabbed it, like you've sort of got to run to the line and get tackled and have people trying to take it off you and
never heard that.
Have to go back.
But it's so true though, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's been a meaningful journey. I've been involved in multiple entities, property technology, venture capital, advisory. I've got a decent real estate portfolio still that earns well. But I ran back into the flames in the last couple of years, and I decided to go back in and inject my whole operating system into the group of companies that I still had substantial equity in, and really to go on it's a mission to change the way that we'll create an alternate way of doing real estate business in Australia that serves the non-paying customer more, the buyers and the tenants, while still representing the owner, so that there's a more balanced equation where the owner can get the best result through having frictionless, better customer service for the buyer and the tenant.
It's a more holistic approach.
Definitely more holistic, more of a property concierge instead of just I'm a selling agent or I'm a buyer's agent.
Because you look at it, and people look at it's one or the other. So I remember when COVID was really tough and builders were putting up some of their prices, and I've been in real estate for 25 years, fixed price contracts, but there's plays in the term they can put it up and people are going, but that's fixed price, and that were there trying to screw the buyers into the developers. And I said, you know what, guys? They appreciated my candor, because I said, we're not here to screw the developers or the clients or us. All three of us are going to share the pain here, because our goal isn't to skin the developer and they walk away bankrupt Our goal is all three of us to share the herd and go out together. So collectively, we're going to see how do we get this together. Now, there's other developers that sunset clauses and they're making all this money. I hate that as well. But the ones, the developers that aren't greedy and they're trying to do the best thing by the client, it's my job. Yes, I work for the client, but also I work for the developer. I work for Reventon, and I want a holistic approach, like you said. We're going to hurt all together, though, equally, come out the other end. Because a lot of people don't see it that way. They see it transactional. They don't see it as relationship-based or transformational, that it's going to be. This is a long-term relationship.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point you make, that real estate's definitely not a transactional journey. Like, if you think, how is wealth really created? Well, we need to be in places in the first place where there's going to be more demand than there is supply. That always helps. It's got to have things around it that are location and infrastructure drivers are going to contribute to that, which I've heard you talk about a lot. So the foundation investment needs to be good, but you don't get wealthy from transacting real estate. You get wealthy from holding it through market cycles when others are dumping.
Which is long-term.
Long-term. So if we're looking just at the transactions, it's not going to work. And if people think that doing one transaction is going to instantly pay off, then everyone would just do the same thing and you'd be back into a commodity that has no inherent value. So we need something, if there's going to be value, there's got to be an advantage that can be held over a 10-year period or more.
And it's that long-term view. So you wouldn't be in business for 5 years, 10 years or 20 years if you don't have that long-term view. So some of my mentors, as I'm sure yours are, they look at everything as a long-term view. You might take a haircut or not make any money on this deal, and in some cases, hopefully not many, lose a bit of money, but you're building that relationship. You're keeping the client happy. You're making, so when the developers were hurting, when all these prices were going stupid, and I saw things in the market I never saw, and I went to one of my mentors, second generation, his business, 1958, started, his father, and I go to him, I've got to ask you a question. He goes, what is it? Have you ever seen anything so crazy in your time? He goes, never. He goes, we are in, and you hear the term unprecedented time so often, but we literally are. And I had to hear it from his mouth, because in my time, in 25 years and thousands of transactions, I haven't seen anything like this. But I'm going to ask him. And when he told me, I go to him, wow, I go to him, much what I thought. But hearing it from you makes it so much different, you know?
I think we're ready for rapid fire.
We can talk all day, so maybe we're going to have to get Mark back on. Now, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Sunset or sunrise?
Sunrise.
Beach holiday or city adventure?
Mountains.
Dogs or cats?
Cats.
Early bird or night owl?
Early.
If you could switch one career today, what would you do?
If I could switch to a different career?
Yeah.
Some sort of creative pursuit in the entrepreneurial sector. It'd be something related to creating and sharing, entrepreneurial.
What's your favorite way to stay active?
Outdoor basketball, street basketball.
I was about to say, I hope it's something with so many runners. Who's your childhood hero?
I had a lot on the way through. I'll say Jordan.
What's your best gift you've ever received?
I remember getting a guitar from my kids for Father's Day, and I cried.
That's pretty cool. If you could live in any fictional universe, what would it be?
Any fictional universe?
Any time period.
Right. If I could live in any time period, what would it be? It'd be fucking right now.
Oh, good. I thought you were going to say that Michael Jordan, because that when he's at his peak. What's one thing that you do when you're having a tough day, your go-to stress mechanism?
Yeah, I actually did it this morning. So I came in here, my energy before I came up was like a bit disheveled. I just had a lot of things that weren't part of the program that I'd set up for the day. So I go back to the things that we've got with us at all times. Breath is the number one for me. Breath helps me in sauna, helps me in ice, helps me in situations. Sometimes I use sound to go with it, but it's predominantly deep belly breaths with the dive.
I read a book on that. It's incredible, because when you look at it and understand that when you're at your most fearful, like bungee jumping out of a plane, when you're scared, whenever anything happens, the thing that goes the most is your breathing. So if you can control that, it's really, when you understand that, it's incredible. What's the last movie or show that you binge watched?
You mean like a series then?
Yeah. Or a movie?
Yeah. So like I'm pretty frequent at the movies, and I like to go and kind of watch some of the sort of more art housey, sort of open the mind up ones. But I'll just say, as far as a great series is called Coach's Playbook. It's called The Playbook, Coaches Rules for Life. And it's got all the great coaches like Doc Rivers of the Celtics and the female women's football, meaning soccer coaches. And they go through like the journeys that they've all been on. It's quite fascinating.
You prefer working in a team or alone?
I prefer creating on my own. I prefer achieving things together.
There's a book I read called Quiet, and it talks about introverts and extroverts, and it talks a lot about that and how a lot of people that are creative create on their own, which I thought fascinating.
Yeah, I would have said I was hardcore extrovert 5 years ago. Maybe I went a bit too far with being extroverted, and I learned a lot more about the 6 types of working genius. You'll hear about Patrick Lencioni talks about it. Mine is invention and wonder. So like wonder, I wonder if we can put a computer on every desk.
He wrote a book about a team, or was it Great Team, or what was it?
Yeah, the ideal team player, 6 types of working genius, 5 dysfunctions.
I read a couple books of his.
Yeah, they're great.
Now, pizza or pasta?
Pasta.
Calling or text?
Text.
Most important question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much have you enjoyed being on the podcast?
I'm lifted compared to when I started, because like I said, I was a bit disheveled. I got things under control with the breath, but I have enjoyed it. And what the thing that I would leave as a gap is that I probably was too detailed with a few of my answers and didn't get to the key points. So I'm going to say a 7 for today, but that's not to do with you. That's more to do with me.
I don't usually get 7s out of 10, so I'm quite happy. Now, before we wrap up,
yes,
I had to ask, would you be kind enough to do a little rap for us?
Yeah, like give us 2 words. Give us 2 words, and I'll just show you how it works, right? So I'll do an a cappella. We don't need a beat or anything.
2 words. So wealth creation or building wealth. Is that good enough? Or
Yeah. So
you ready?
Yeah. So like if I was going to use wealth, I'd be rhyming with like wealth and stealth. When I come back now, how's your health? Well, every time we come back now, I'm going to say, put it on the shelf. And then when it comes to creation, well, what station are you tuning into? Are we off our face in this nation? Doesn't matter because I'm going to be pacing. I'll go a lot faster, but I'm never racing. So, I just grab the words and just associate them. The longer you've got, the more you can make stories out of it.
Well, I'd like to say thank you. You're the first person to rap on it. Remember, if you like Relentless, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more episodes. Mark, it's been a pleasure, mate. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.